What's up everyone, Vu of Vu Films back with another video. Today I'll be testing out some batteries. Now, I'm not the most technical person. I don't know, I'm not a battery specialist.
Unprofessional.
And this is a very basic test that I did for myself. And I figured I would share with you because if I want to know about this information, I figured you would too. And on top of that, when I talk about these batteries and you guys see it on the video, you'll be tempted to click the links in the description to get me affiliate revenue. So seemed like a good idea to me, but that's neither here nor there. So let's get to it. Everybody wonders what kind of battery they should buy for whatever it is that they're using their batteries for. The average person that just uses cell phone, doom scrolling, IG or TikTok, they're going to be using power banks, such as my favorite iNew power bank right here with 91 watt hours of battery. 100 watt output. I'm going to talk about that 91 watt hours a little bit later in the video. And then there's filmmaker, content creator, douchebags out there, YouTube douchebag trash tube douchers like myself, who often uses these little proprietary batteries that come with lights, such as this Zhiyun X100 RGB Cam Mackey LED light. This battery was made specifically for this light.
China.
It just attaches to a light like this. You could also power something else with USB-C, like even another light, and use this as a battery bank, charge your phone with it, whatever. So there's that. And then we also use these battery grips. This one is 100 watt output. And most people use it to power LED lights. Put it on a light stand, or you hold it, you put the LED light here, and you can power your LED light. And these days, a lot of the smaller LED lights, like the Zhiyun, requires up to 100 watts to be able to use it at its full power. And of course, the ever favorite V-mount battery, which basically just attaches via V-mount, but also has other output options like D-tap, USB-C, etc. So it's kind of like a power bank as well. When you buy these power banks, you pretty much just look for two things. What's the battery capacity? What is its max wattage output? And of course, input, like how fast it could charge and how fast it could charge something else. And of course, in my case, I'm also looking at size. You know, for me, the smaller the better.
Like the thing in your prayer.
Get the most power output, the most capacity at the smallest possible size and weight. That's what I'll do, which is why I like this iNew 91 watt hour power bank. So today what I'm testing is how consistent is the battery capacity across these options, how the battery performs, you know, over time, like does heat affect it at all? So what I always wondered is what's like the actual capacity for these batteries. When you buy batteries, you always see that it's advertised with milliamps. But as a videographer, I'm always dealing with watt hours. And to be honest, the only real like consistent number across all battery banks is watt hours. If it says it's 50 watt hours, 99 watt hours, you generally know that it's going to have a certain amount of capacity. It's going to, for example, I'm just making something up here. Let's say we all know that every time we buy like a 99 watt hour battery, that it's going to charge your phone 6 times. When you buy a power bank that's advertised for like 5,000 milliamps, 20,000 milliamps, 15,000 milliamps, it could be whatever. So for example, this iNew battery is 91 watt hours and it says it's 25,000 milliamps and 91 watt hours. And then here, this battery grip says it is 88.8 watt hour battery. So it should be around the same as this 90, right? Like basically both of them have 90 watt hours. Let's just round them. But the battery grip here says it is only 6,000 milliamps. So what actually does this mean? Does this mean, you know, if you just look at the milliamps, you would think like this doesn't have any battery basically, and this one has a lot. So the only real consistent number we're looking at here is the watt hours. Obviously, you know, there's a conversion or that. I think you multiply like the milliamps by like the voltage or whatever, and then you get how much watt hours each battery has. I don't know. The reason why I want to know about this information is because it's wedding season starting. I'm a wedding videographer. I just bought these little power grips here, and I just want to make sure I know what I'm getting. I know what to expect out of it. Secondly, is I'm working on a sponsorship with iNew. This video is not sponsored by them. They sent me this power bank right here that I've been using for the past like 3 months. And I already did any type of video that they asked me to do with this. I've already done. So this is like under no obligation. And even before they ever sent me a battery bank, I've already bought battery banks from them. This is their old model. And then you can see the difference in size in terms of like, but they're the same specs. Around the same watt hours. This is 92 versus 91. Same output, 100 watt. This one is just a giant. And I also bought this a 140 watt output for my laptops. Didn't work too well for my laptop because of my laptop, not because of the bank. But I've already bought stuff from them before and already, had good experience using these battery banks. So when they reached out, I was like, yeah, sure, I'll try it out. And then now they're working on sponsorship. But like before I do that, I want to make sure things check out. I want to make sure, hey, like, is this legit? Is this, if I'm going to be recommending these battery banks to you via sponsorship, I'm going to have to know that it's legit. I'm going to have to know that, they are as advertised and they could handle what I'm telling my audience they could handle. If I'm going to be taking money to say things, I better make sure what I say is the truth. What I say is my opinion of something and not saying specific things because I'm getting paid. So the test is really simple, okay? I took this 100 watt Tube Dusher Shill X100 RGB light, powered it at 100 watt, 3200 Kelvin, because that is the most often used temperature that I use, at weddings. Full blast 100 watts, and I just tested each of these batteries. So first I tested it with this proprietary battery, and then I tested it with iNew power bank, and then I tested it with this power grip, and then I tested it with this other power battery grip that I put back in the box because I'm returning it. And I'll explain why in a second. Unfortunately, I did not test my V-mount because it's not capable of 100 watts. And the reason why I wanted to run the light at a full 100 watts for the test, because I'm recording this with my camera. And 1080p, I'm just recording it from the time the light turns on. And then once the light turns off, I stop recording. And then so I have from the moment of the recording until the light stops recording, that's the amount of time I have it lasted, because I'm going to leave the light as is. I'm going to go do something else. I'm not trying to do like, these V mounts are capable of 65 watt output. I'm not trying to sit there and have my like lights and my camera running for, I don't know, hour and a half, 2 hours, probably. It's going to take too long. I ain't got time for that. I'm probably going to make like $2 off of this video. Almost a gallon of gas here in Maryland. Obviously, if you live in California, you cannot buy any gas with that. You might as well walk over there. Honestly, you guys should be probably walking anyway, clearing your mind and all that stuff, because y'all be doing some wild shit over there. I have no idea what's going on over there in California. So, so I just did that with fully charged batteries, ran the light. When the light turned off, that's how I know how long each battery lasted. And so let me pull up my data here. The Zhiyun proprietary battery has 55 watt hours. It lasted 35 minutes. The iNew 91 watt hour power bank lasted 46 minutes. The newer 74 watt hour battery grip lasted 42 minutes. And the ZG Cine battery grip, 89 watt hours, lasted 51 minutes. So this battery grip lasted the longest. However, if I do the math, the Zhiyun was the most efficient. So as much hate as people give these Zhiyun batteries, it actually performed more than expected. So at first you look at these results and you're like, wait a minute, like something doesn't add up, because the iNew should perform closer to this ZG Cine or better because it's advertised at 91 watt hours. I did some simple math. Listen, I know when you look at me, you're like, yo, this guy's good at math, Asian, glasses, whatever. I'll tell you right now, that is not true. I am really shitty at math. But my daughter is really good at math, though. She's like 7 years old, Asian. So the community is proud, really proud of her. If she starts chasing around the neighbor's dog, cooking it outside and stuff like that, it's going to be a big problem. But I mean, being good at mathematics is a good thing. You know what I mean? What I did was I just took total watt hours and then I divided it by the amount of time each power bank lasted. And then what I would get is basically how many watt hours is used per minute of operation. At 55 watt hours, lasting 35 minutes, the Zhiyun proprietary battery basically used 1.57 watt hours per minute. And the newer use 1.76 watt hours per minute, and the ZG Cine battery grip use 1.74 watt hours per minute. And if I calculate the iNew power bank at its 91 watt hours advertised with the 91 watt hour spec, it was using 1.97, almost 2 watt hours per minute, which is telling me that this battery is really inefficient. That is true. However, I had to read the fine print in the back of the battery bank. It says output capacity 80 watt hours. And it has in the parentheses, typical energy loss accounted. So really, it's not really, sure, it could hold 91 watt hours, but when you use it, you lose like 11 watt hours through whatever, and you're only really getting 80 watt hours in, actual output. And when I say watt hours, I'm talking about the capacity, not like how much power it's giving out, like 100 watts, for like, it's just 80 watt hours is just its actual capacity. So if I recalculate the numbers, I take 80 watt hours and then divided it by the 46 minutes that it was on for using the light, it actually used 1.73. It actually used 1.73 watt hours every minute, which is consistent with the other battery banks. Like this grip, 1.45, and the newer performed the worst at 1.76. But 1.73, 1.76 is around the same amount. But I can tell you, if I was able to explain why the newer performed the least efficient at 1.76, even though it's by a little bit, it's because it has no, it doesn't have heat. It doesn't have any heat management. That battery bank got really hot. And the only thing I compare it to is like when I went to reach for it to remove it, it was almost as hot as me touching a pot of boiling water. Obviously not that hot, but it was hot enough for me to touch it and then just pull my hand back. That's why I'm returning it, because that's telling me it's just unsafe battery. Not only from a standpoint of just something getting that hot, it could, I don't know, explode or something. I'm using it out in at a professional setting, wedding reception, people walking around. I've had issues in the past where I've had some issues where guests are selfish and they don't like my lights being up, even though it's pretty dim, and they like to try to turn off my lights, and they reach up for that battery bank and then it burns their hand or something. I don't know if I could get in trouble for that, even though I shouldn't, because they shouldn't be touching my stuff in the first place. But also, at the end of the night, if we're about to go pack up and we gotta go grab those lights, we could burn ourselves. It's just not worth it, especially if there's battery banks like this ZG Cine where pretty much it just got a little bit warm and that's it. There's proper heat management built into these grips, whereas the newer one is just this big hunk of metal that has a battery in it and it doesn't care about heat. And so that's probably why it got so hot that it started becoming inefficient. And the only reason why I could explain why Zhiyun is more the efficient one is because it's a proprietary battery. It's connecting directly to its light. It's, everything is designed specifically for the light. There's no USB-C power going out, so you might lose some power through the USB-C cable. Who knows? It appears so that these battery grips, at least, they're advertising a true output capacity and not just plain old capacity itself. So that's good to know, and it's good to know that at least iNew, does say here exactly what the output is and the actual capacity is and everything. But I think they should just not even advertise the battery capacity, but they should advertise the actual output battery capacity, as in after accounting for the losses. These watt hour advertisements are generally accurate, And I've used these V mounts enough to have trust in how long they last. I have an idea of how long they last or whatever. And I'm pretty sure if I tested it, it would be pretty close to these battery banks. I'm pretty sure if I test those V mounts, it would be pretty close to these battery grips. I mean, other than that, like the only other thing of note here, I did it twice. One with the black one with the red one. They're the same. They both right around 35% and 40% capacity left. The light turned off. And I didn't realize that, you know, because I wasn't in the office at the time. I checked batteries. It was either 35 or 40%. And then I just turned the light back on. It was able to do the full 100 watts and lasted all the way down to like 3% battery remaining. And then it just shut off and then it wouldn't turn the light back on, even though they both said like 3% battery left. And the way I calculated the time was that now I have like 2 video clips, you know, of each of the batteries. So then once I came into the office, I saw it turned off. I just like restarted the recording of the video. So I just merged the 2 video clips together, you know, when the light turned off, and then I just resumed it. Time went back on again. So that's just like that's one aspect of the test. That's a little off because it wasn't necessarily a continuous all the way through use of the entire battery. It was like it used the 40% and then I had to turn it back on. And I contacted iKnew and they told me that there is like safety precautions, you know, built into these battery grips, which is great, you know, and that once it got to a certain internal temperature, you know, it just turned off, you know, for safety reasons, which is a good thing. It's preferred. It sucks that it can't go all, you know, use up its entire like capacity at 100 watts like that. But at the same time, like in a real world situation, I'm not going to be using any lights at 100 watt hour on battery. Like when I use these LED lights, it's always going to be most of the time for long duration. It's only going to be like 15, 20%, maybe 25%. So that heat, whatever, is probably not something I'm going to have to deal with. And then out of curiosity, I did do a test with this Zhiyun proprietary battery powering out of the USB. I was about to just try to do the 65 watt, you know, test with using this, you know, so I could test the V mount. So I was using this power bank 65 watts out into a 65 watt light. And then it was going for like an hour and 20 minutes already. And I was wondering, wow, it's lasting a long time. And then I glanced over and I noticed that the battery wattage showing on the light that I was using said 30 watts. When at the beginning of it, it says 65 watts. And I was able to get 100% full output out of a 65 watt light. But then when I checked it later on, it had dropped to 50% output on the 65 watt light. And then it was reading this battery as only a 30 watt power bank, which means this was heating up internally. Which I'm thinking there's some type of heat protection on this as well. It was getting hot and then it had to cut the wattage down. You know, this is via USB-C. Again, like all these tests, I was using the same USB-C cable and all that stuff. So like, you just got to be aware when you're buying these things that if it heats up, it might shut off or like decrease wattage out of nowhere because of heat. You got to consider that if you're using it in a hot environment and all that stuff. When these batteries say they're like 80 watt hours, 90 watt hours, that's exactly what they are. And the only problem is you never know if you buy one of these batteries if it has any safety things built in, because clearly that newer one got super hot and like nothing happened. So yeah, that is it, guys. I hope this video was insightful. Hope that it helped you make a purchase decision on your next battery bank, battery grip, whatever battery that it is you want to buy for all of your electronics, your LED lights, your camera, whatever. Even with these limitations, you know, in terms of like heat, with these iKnew battery banks, I still recommend them. They're still great. And again, like if you're like me and you're only using these LED lights at like 25% of its output, these things could handle it perfectly fine. But, you know, for like professional use cases, for me going on a shoot, I'm going to be getting this battery grip right here. So I already have 2 of these and I'm good to go with that. I'm completely comfortable bringing these battery banks as a backup just in case. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It would be greatly appreciated. And as always, until next time, lighten up. Hey man, what you sucking? Bro, you don't gotta talk like that. Why you suck on that? Bro, first of all, I'm not sucking on anything. I am just fulfilling my natural obligations as a two-doucher shill by effective product placement. Of course, I'm using the Condor Blue Kofi capture cup mounted here on the drywall, and conveniently I have Shill Master Cam Mackey Zhiyun X100 RGB for the full Shillomatic experience. My favorite, smallest 91 watt hour 100 watt output power bank from iKnew. The special bonus, wireless Kamika VM40 shotgun mic with 32-bit float audio recorded to its internal storage. Oh my god, why you suck on all that?
Why are you gay?
Dude, as seen with this rainbow lighting, I don't care what you do with your life. I have a wife and kids. What you do with your life is your business. Why don't you suck on that on the window? Of course I could put it on the window, but I'm trying to demonstrate how strong it is by mounting it on drywall. That sucking, it not strong. You put something longer and you jerk on it, it will fall off. Bro, what the hell are you talking about? Let me show you. Yo, stop doing that. It will fall off. Just stop jerking. It will fall off now. It's not gonna come. It's not gonna fall off, bro. Sign up for my How to Suck Masterclass for free right away.
You are gay.